Your computer has been taking screenshots of everything you do, every 30 seconds, automatically, without asking. Right now, as you read this, Windows 11 is photographing your screen and storing those images in a searchable database on your hard drive. Your banking portal when you logged in this morning, the medical symptom you searched at 11 at night, the private message you typed and deleted, the salary negotiation email you drafted 3 times before sending. Every single one of those moments was captured, processed, and filed away by a feature Microsoft quietly enabled on millions of machines through a background update that arrived without a notification, without a prompt, and without anything resembling your consent. The feature is called Recall, and what Microsoft built into it is not a productivity tool. It is a complete photographic record of your digital life stored on your own device in a format that is far more accessible than Microsoft wants you to understand. This is not speculation. This is not a privacy researcher's theoretical concern. This is documented, demonstrated, and already being exploited by the people who spend their careers finding exactly these kinds of vulnerabilities. Before we get to the 3 settings, you need to understand what you are actually dealing with, because the way Microsoft has described Recall publicly and what Recall actually does are 2 different things, and the gap between those 2 descriptions is where your privacy lives or dies. Microsoft announced Recall in May 2024 as part of the Copilot Plus PC initiative. The public pitch was straightforward. Recall takes periodic snapshots of your screen activity and uses artificial intelligence to make those snapshots searchable. You could theoretically type, "Show me that website I was looking at 2 weeks ago," and Recall would find it. Microsoft framed this as a memory aid, a way to recover context you had lost, the kind of feature that sounds genuinely useful until you think carefully about what it requires to work. To make your screen activity searchable by AI, the AI has to see your screen activity. All of it, continuously, every 30 seconds by default. And everything it sees gets stored. Microsoft said the data stays local on your device. Microsoft said it is encrypted. Microsoft said sensitive content filters would automatically exclude things like passwords and financial information. Security researchers spent approximately 48 hours after the announcement demonstrating that every one of those assurances had significant technical gaps that made them effectively meaningless in practice. A security researcher named Kevin Beaumont was one of the first to publish a detailed technical analysis of how Recall actually stores its data. What he found was that the snapshots are stored in a SQLite database on your local drive. The database is not encrypted at rest in any meaningful way that would prevent a piece of malware running with standard user permissions from accessing it. The sensitive content filters that Microsoft promised would block passwords and financial information were not blocking them. Screenshots containing credit card numbers, bank account details, and plain text passwords were being captured and stored. The searchable database containing a timeline of everything you had done on your computer was sitting on your hard drive in a location that any sufficiently motivated piece of software could read, copy, and exfiltrate in seconds. Beaumont called it a perfect data exfiltration target. He was not wrong. What you have when Recall is running is a continuously updated, AI-indexed, searchable archive of everything that has ever appeared on your screen. It is the single most comprehensive surveillance database that has ever existed on a consumer device, and Microsoft built it in and started enabling it quietly through updates. The backlash when this became public was significant enough that Microsoft announced a delay and promised to make Recall opt-in rather than opt-out before shipping. But here is what most people who followed that announcement do not know. The delay applied to new Copilot Plus PC hardware. It did not apply cleanly to existing machines receiving feature updates. An opt-in versus opt-out is a distinction that requires you to know the feature exists, understand what it does, and actively navigate to the setting to turn it off, none of which Microsoft made straightforward. The Windows update that delivered Recall components to existing machines did not include a prominent notification explaining what was being installed. It did not present a clear yes or no prompt about whether you wanted your screen photographed every 30 seconds. It installed quietly, the way most Windows updates install, which is to say invisibly and without meaningful disclosure. The 3 settings described later in the script address this directly. But first, you need to understand what happens if you do not address it. Because the local storage argument, the idea that it is fine because the data stays on your device, is built on an assumption about your device's security that does not reflect how most people's computers actually operate. Your computer almost certainly has software on it that you did not personally vet for trustworthiness. Browser extensions installed years ago from developers you know nothing about. Applications downloaded from the internet with permissions that seemed reasonable at the time. Legitimate software that has since been acquired by a company with different priorities than the one that built it. Pirated software carrying payloads. Its original distributor never disclosed. Even entirely clean machines running only verified software receive updates from the companies that built that software. and those updates are trusted automatically. Any one of those vectors can deliver code that has read access to your local file system. And if that code has read access to your local file system, it has access to the recall database. The sensitive data in that database, the complete photographic record of everything you have done on your computer, is only as secure as the least trustworthy piece of software that has ever run on your machine. For most real-world computers owned by real-world people, that security level is not high. Microsoft's local storage argument assumes a device security model that exists in controlled environments, not in the homes of the people Microsoft sold this feature to. There is also the law enforcement dimension that Microsoft's public communications have been careful not to address directly. The recall database is stored on your local drive. Local drives are subject to search warrants. If your device is ever seized for any reason, the recall database gives investigators a complete timeline of your screen activity going back as far as the feature has been running. Every website you visited, every document you opened, every message you sent, every search you performed, every video you watched, all of it time-stamped and indexed, sitting on your drive in a format that forensic tools can read and analyze efficiently. This is not a hypothetical risk. It is a structural feature of what recall is and how it stores data. Law enforcement agencies that previously had to reconstruct digital activity from browser history, email servers, and partial forensic artifacts now have access, through a warrant, to a complete visual record of what was on your screen and when. Microsoft built that record and stored it on your device, whether you wanted it or not. Now here are the 3 settings. Follow each one in exact sequence. Do not skip any of them because they address different layers of the same problem, and disabling one without the others leaves significant gaps. The first setting is the recall feature itself. Open your Start menu and click on Settings. Navigate to Privacy and Security. Scroll down until you find the section labeled Recall and Snapshots. On machines where this section appears, you will see a toggle that controls whether Recall is actively taking snapshots of your screen. Turn this off. Below that toggle, you will see an option to delete the snapshots that Recall has already taken. Click it. Choose to delete all snapshots. This removes the existing database of screen captures that Recall has accumulated up to this point. Do not leave this database on your drive after disabling the feature. The feature being off does not delete what it already collected. You have to delete it manually. After you delete the snapshots, you will see a confirmation that the deletion is in progress. Do not skip this step because the snapshots that already exist are just as sensitive as any that would be taken in the future. The database sitting on your drive represents everything Recall photographed between the moment it was enabled and the moment you turned it off. That database has value to anyone trying to reconstruct your activity. Remove it. If the Recall and Snapshot section does not appear in your privacy and security settings, it means your machine either did not receive the recall components in your current Windows build, or the feature is being delivered through a different update pathway that has not yet reached your device. Do not assume absence from this menu means the feature is not present or not coming. Proceed to the second and third settings regardless. The second setting is Windows Diagnostic Data. This is separate from Recall, but it is the data collection layer that feeds Microsoft's broader understanding of your device activity. Open Settings. Go to Privacy and Security. Click on Diagnostics and Feedback. Under Diagnostic Data, you will see 2 options: Required Diagnostic Data and Optional Diagnostic Data. Required Diagnostic Data is the minimum Microsoft forces you to send. You cannot disable it entirely on Windows 11 Home or Pro, but you can ensure you are only sending the minimum by selecting Required Diagnostic Data and not Optional. Optional diagnostic data is described by Microsoft in bureaucratic language that makes it sound routine. In practice, optional diagnostic data can include the websites you visit in Edge, detailed information about how you use applications, information about the files you open and how long you spend in them, and behavioral pattern data that goes significantly beyond what most users would consider normal diagnostic information. Turn off optional diagnostic data. Below that, turn off tailored experiences. Tailored experiences means Microsoft uses your diagnostic data to show you personalized tips, recommendations, and advertisements within Windows. This is a direct revenue-generating use of your behavioral data, and there is no functional reason to leave it enabled. Below Tailored Experiences, you will see a button to delete diagnostic data that Microsoft has collected from your device. Click it. This does not delete everything Microsoft has collected. Processed data and aggregated data remain, but it removes the raw diagnostic data associated with your specific device. Do this periodically, not just once. The third setting is Activity History. Open Settings. Go to Privacy and Security. Click Activity History. You will see a toggle for Store My Activity History on this device. Turn it off. Below that, you will see a toggle for Send My Activity History to Microsoft. If this is on, turn it off. Then click the button to clear activity history. Activity history is the Windows feature that tracks what you open, what you browse, and what you work on across all devices signed into your Microsoft account. It was introduced as part of the Timeline feature, and it powers the cross-device continuity functionality that lets you pick up where you left off on a different machine. The cost of that convenience is that a detailed log of your application usage, browsing history, and document activity is being sent to Microsoft servers and stored against your account. When you clear activity history, you remove what Microsoft has stored. When you turn off both toggles, you stop new activity from being recorded locally and stop it from being sent to Microsoft's servers going forward. After completing these 3 settings, there are 2 additional steps that significantly strengthen what you have just done. They are not settings in the same sense. They are actions you should take once and then repeat periodically. Open Task Manager by pressing Control, Shift, and Escape simultaneously. Click on the Startup Apps tab. You will see a list of every application configured to launch when Windows starts. Go through this list carefully. Any application you do not recognize or do not use regularly should be disabled. Startup applications run with elevated trust and early access to your system. A startup application that has not been updated in years, or that was installed as a companion to hardware you no longer own, or that came bundled with software you installed once and forgot about, is a persistent presence on your machine with continuous access to your local file system. This includes access to the Recall database even after you disable Recall, because the database directory still exists. Disabling unnecessary startup applications reduces the attack surface of your machine significantly. Open your browser and go to account.microsoft.com. Sign in with your Microsoft account. Navigate to Privacy. Open your activity history. You will see a record of the activity Microsoft has been collecting from your devices. Review it. Use the filter to see what categories of data exist. Delete it. Microsoft provides category by category deletion options and a Clear All option. Use the Clear All option. Then navigate to the Privacy dashboard and review what Microsoft describes as your data. Location data, browsing data from Edge, search history from Bing if you have ever used it, any Cortana interaction data. Delete everything available for deletion. Microsoft does not make this interface particularly intuitive. The deletion options are spread across multiple sections, and some categories require separate actions to clear. Work through each one systematically. This is not a 10-minute task. If you have been using Microsoft services for several years, it may take 30 to 45 minutes to go through every category. Do it anyway, because the data sitting in your Microsoft account is not just diagnostic data from your current machine. It is potentially years of behavioral data accumulated across every Windows device you have ever signed into with that account. Here is what Microsoft will not tell you about why Recall exists in the form it does. Microsoft is losing the AI race in the consumer product layer. Google has Gemini deeply integrated into Android and Chrome. Apple has Apple Intelligence built into iOS and macOS at the operating system level. Microsoft has Copilot, which is a capable product, but which lacks the deep contextual understanding of your personal activity that makes AI assistance genuinely useful, rather than generically capable. Recall is Microsoft's attempt to solve this problem. If Copilot can see everything you have ever done on your computer, it can answer questions with genuine personal context. It can find the document you were working on 3 weeks ago. It can remember the conversation you had in Teams last month. It can surface the website you visited twice before buying something. That contextual capability requires a database of your activity. Recall is that database. Microsoft built it not primarily as a productivity feature for you. They built it as a training and context layer for their AI products. Your screen activity is the raw material. Copilot's usefulness is the product, and you are paying for that product in privacy rather than in dollars. This is not a new pattern for Microsoft. Windows 11 already collects more data about your device usage than any previous version of Windows. The telemetry system that sends behavioral information back to Microsoft is more comprehensive than its Windows 10 predecessor and significantly more comprehensive than Windows 7 or 8. The requirement for a Microsoft account during setup for Windows 11 Home, a requirement that did not exist in previous versions, is not a security feature. It is an identity anchor. It ensures that the behavioral data collected from your device is linked to a persistent identity rather than an anonymous device identifier. Linked behavioral data is far more valuable to an advertising and AI business than anonymous device telemetry. Knowing that this specific person searches for these things, uses these applications, visits these websites, and works on these documents is categorically more valuable than knowing that some device somewhere exhibits these usage patterns. The Microsoft account requirement creates the linkage that makes the data valuable. Recall creates the most detailed behavioral record that Linkage has ever had access to. What you have done by completing the 3 settings in this script is meaningful, but not total. Meaningful because you have stopped the most egregious active data collection happening on your device right now. Stopped recall from photographing your screen, reduced the diagnostic data flowing to Microsoft, stopped activity history from building a cross-device behavioral log. Not total because required diagnostic data continues to flow regardless of your settings choices, because Microsoft updates Windows without your explicit approval for each update, and those updates can introduce new data collection behaviors. Because the Microsoft account you are signed into continues to accumulate data from every Microsoft service you use. Because Edge, if you are using it, is collecting browsing data that supplements everything else. The 3 settings in this script are the minimum. They address the most immediately concerning behaviors, and they are the settings that every Windows 11 user should verify regardless of how unconcerned they feel about privacy in general. Because the question is not whether you have something to hide. Nobody frames their physical life that way. Nobody leaves their front door open because they have nothing to hide. The question is whether the most detailed behavioral database ever placed on a consumer device should exist on your computer without your informed, specific, and revocable consent. Microsoft's answer when they quietly enabled recall through a background update was yes. The 3 settings in this script are your answer back. Check these settings every time Windows delivers a major update, because major updates can and do reset settings you have previously configured. Microsoft has done this before. Settings that users deliberately turned off have been turned back on after updates without notification. This is not a theoretical risk. It is a documented behavior pattern across multiple versions of Windows that privacy researchers have observed and published repeatedly. Set a calendar reminder for every major Windows update. Go back through all 3 settings after every one. Because the settings being correct today is not a guarantee they will still be correct in 3 months when the next feature update arrives. Persistence is the difference between privacy as a one-time action and privacy as an actual practice.